This is week 3 of The Wall Within, Pathfic Lecture 47. And this section is called Transition from Outer to Inner Authority. And it's a large section on authority, in part because this lecture follows Pathfic Lecture 46, Authority. Guide starts off with a discussion of duty, or this section starts off with a discussion of duty versus must, and speaks in terms of duty as something that we decide to do, decide, agree, say, what the heck. But duty is voluntary. We make a decision. It's not necessarily pleasant. We may not like it. We may want to rush through it, but we are engaged. We agree. This is my duty and I will fulfill it. Versus the feeling of being compelled. If you are compelled to do something, then you are not doing your duty. You are doing it because you have no choice, or you feel you have no choice. So that it's against our will, and we can complain about it because it's not our doing, it's not our agreement. So we sometimes prefer to frame things as must so that we can complain about them. Now, if I'm doing my duty and I complain, I'm being a bit of a hypocrite. I have agreed to do this. I have agreed it is necessary. It's part of my responsibility, and I complain about it. It sounds like I'm playing both sides of the fence. But if I claim that I have no choice and that I am being forced, then I'm a prisoner. I'm a slave. And of course, I have the right to complain because it is unjust to force people to do things. And when I was a kid, I remember I never used to understand the phrase, have your cake and eat it too, because I was very literal as a child. And I would try to imagine having the cake and eating it too. And I couldn't understand the abstractness of that phrase, but I really understand it today. And this would refer, in this case, to I will fulfill the obligation. I won't be thought of as irresponsible, but I will complain about it. I will have my fun. I will speak out against the authority that made me do this, even though I secretly know I have to do it anyway, or should do it anyway. So I can do my duty and complain about it. I can eat my cake, my pleasure of complaining. While I have it, I perform my duty as well. So we play, it's a different way of playing both sides of the fence. This reflects on our attitude towards authority. So I'm going to go back to transition from outer to inner authority. When we accept inner authority, then we can't really rebel against the concept of authority. We have to give that up. So there's a poem that I butcher in my recollection of it, that when I grew up, I put away the toys of a child. As we grow up, we need to accept the need for authority. And part of that is accepting that we are going to integrate authority into our inner life, our inner decision-making process, rather than living a life of a child where we are constantly being told what to do by outer authority and have no free will, have no choice. So that if we wish to complain about authority, we certainly can't become an authority. And so this resistance is, I don't want to give up my fight against outer authority, therefore I cannot develop inner authority. So that's what this duty and must discussion is about. Now, in Pathfic Lecture 46, and I quote 2 large sections in this section, Pathfic Lecture 46 talks about 2 attitudes towards authority, one of law upholding and the other of law breaking. Basically saying they are 2 sides of a spectrum and they come together in the middle in that the law upholder has truth, that law should be upheld, spiritual law should be upheld. But in the law upholding, there's a righteousness that creeps in. And there's a sense of I'm on the right side, a pleasure in not having the feeling that no one can complain against you or judge you because you're upholding the law. So you're doing it, but you're not necessarily doing it for the right reasons. You're doing it to be seen as good or to feel safe from criticism rather than a deep respect for the actual law that you're upholding. Now, again, there's truth in that, upholding the law, but we're always talking about the distortion that creeps into these things. Now, with lawbreakers, well, what would be the positive of law breaking? Well, that would be civil disobedience. Remember that when we talk about law, we're framing it, even when we talk about spiritual law, we're framing it in terms of our experience, and our experience is with human law. And human law is far from perfect. It's not created perfect in the first place. It's not adjudicated perfectly. It's not understood and interpreted perfectly, and it's not advocated perfectly. So there are distortions everywhere in the process of human law. And therefore, a lawbreaker is a way of arguing against what we feel are unjust laws rather than right laws. But of course, once you get in that energy and you have fun with that and you become an outlaw and the pride builds up and the identity of being a lawbreaker builds up, you may not be as careful about which laws you break. And it may no longer be a protest against truly unjust laws. It may become a defiance of authority, which from a spiritual perspective reflects our inner defiance of spiritual authority. Now, everybody has that, but the law upholder is hiding from it, and the law breaker is challenging it. So both have their truths and both have their distortions. And the last section that I want to mention is that issues about authority can come up when we engage in a process of love. Now, the tricky part here is the use of the word love. The guide phrases this as being in love, as distinct from loving. So there's no conflict with loving. But to be in love is more about being enthralled. It's about being in eros, about being captured by a romantic feeling. And that leads to a sense of being captured by the other person. They give you pleasure. Being in their presence gives you pleasure. And therefore, you feel that you can't breathe without them. You can't live without them. Now, your life seems to be dependent upon them and them continuing to be present for you and give you these feelings. So this feeling of dependence makes you feel like a child. It makes you feel powerless. And we fight back against that. So one of the things that happens when you fall in love or you're enthralled with something is you feel its power over you because you're seeing it as binary. I must say yes or no. It's not a negotiable situation. So that love can bring about a feeling of dependence. It can bring up issues about authority, fear of authority, or a submission to, which is not healthy for building a loving relationship between two adults. Now, why would that be different from love? Because love doesn't, love is not what we are describing here. Love is not being in the throes of feeling and being beholden to and needing and I must have. Love just is. Love can accept the other person not returning that love. It technically should not change your love if the other person doesn't return it. It's not about them. It's not a barter. It's not a gambit. It's not a bait that you put on a hook to throw at them to see if you can reel them in. Love just is. I can love many people who do not wish to engage with me. And I can accept that people love me that I don't wish to engage with. But when love becomes a demand, when it becomes, and I want to continue this feeling at this level, and you must give it to me, that's a different situation. So we use the words love, and yet we mean a different version of love, perhaps, at different times. It's hard to read the lectures sometimes when we throw an interpretation into a word that is not intended at that time, but language is limited. So it's important to read the text and get a feel for it, rather than say, the guide's saying that love is dangerous, or we shouldn't love, or we should love, etc. To notice the nuances of in love and the kind of love that is being described. So in a joking way, Greeks are supposed to have 7 different words for love. They could have 30, I don't know. But the phrase I've heard a lot is that they have 7 words for love, and we have 1. Well, we do have more than 1, but we use adjectives: platonic love, romantic love. We qualify it, where the Greeks may have simplified life and they have separate words for it. Whether or not you have separate words, there's a place of being mature in your language skills so that you understand shorthand. You can understand a loving comment as loving rather than romantic love. You can tell the difference. Same thing with inner and outer authority. It's part of growing up to begin to sense the difference between inner and outer, and developing your own, rather than being dependent upon outer authority to structure your life. So, short summary of Pathwork Week 3 of Pathwork Lecture 47, The Wall Within. Very quickly, how does this relate to the wall within? If we feel dependent, if we feel like a child, then we must monitor the amount of pressure that comes at us. We must build walls. If we have inner authority, but we don't trust authority, which is a tricky situation, then we must compartmentalize our life so that these walls are in places we want them to be, and they don't interfere with our pleasure and our joy. Because we don't see inner authority sometimes as being pleasuresome, pleasureful, and joyful. We see authority the way some people see the word work. When I say the word work, I'm describing a certain level of activity. Other people hear the word work and it's, oh my God, I have to go to work. It's a terrible thing. It's a burden. It's a chore. To me, it's just, that's not the fun part of what I do. Or that's a generic term for this part of my activity versus another part of my activity. If we see the word authority or the feeling of authority as a negative, then we're building walls to segregate it, to keep it under control because it's not inherently pleasurable. Once we see authority as I'm going to use the term, like there are movable barriers that I can move around at will. When I see authority as smaller distinctions in my life, then I'm not afraid of it. And I know, well, it's getting in the way, we need to move it over. But if I see it as binary, it's all or nothing. Either I'm in charge or the outside world is in charge. Then those walls need to be big because I don't feel I have the power to move or transform them. So this is the problem with the walls within, is we set them up, we don't realize how tall, how thick, how heavy, how impenetrable they are, and we don't quite know how to take them down. So thanks for listening. Hope you read the lecture.